Here we go.
Good evening, Stonegate audience. Thank you very much for joining us for part 2 tonight of The Power of Notes. It is my great pleasure to introduce my friend and mentor, Donna Bauer. Donna Bauer is trademarked as the original note buyer. Donna has more than 30 years of experience doing, good Lord, she's probably done everything there is to do in the field of note investing. Performing notes, non-performing notes, seller financing, private lending, partials, you name it. I'm sure she has done it along in her career. Donna provides great service to her students and is a wealth of knowledge for everyone. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Donna Bauer.
Thanks, Phil, and thanks for having me on, and thanks to each one of you who joined us tonight. I don't know if you had a chance to see our last week's video or webinar, but we've gotten some really good responses from it. I mentioned that Bill and I were talking, and we realized that a lot of people simply don't know the power of notes. And they think like it's this big highfalutin thing that, oh, someday, you know, I aspire to be a note buyer. Well, today's the day that you need to be a note buyer. And it doesn't matter whether you've ever bought a property or not. Let me tell you, it's a lot easier to start in notes than to finish in notes. And the big complaint that I have from most people is that they should have started sooner. So I'm glad that you're on the call tonight. We talked about a number of things. In fact, I was just going to fly through them real quick here. For some reason, this always is very tricky. It seems to start out okay.
I know we talked a little bit at the start, Donna, about, you know, kind of how every single person starts with their own situation and goals and vision of what it is they're trying to accomplish. You know, and that was one of the things we talked about right from the start, is really how versatile note investing is, and about how note investing can be used to achieve any number of goals. You just have to know how to tweak it a little bit and what levers to pull and that type of thing. So I know that's where we started off with last week.
And that is exactly right. And I mean, depending on your circumstances and your goals, I can tailor make a plan for you. And everybody's plan could be different because everybody's goals and you know, particular situation varies. So that's the beauty of doing the notes. So last week we said if you need quick cash, you should flip a note. And if you'll recall, and if you have, I'm flying through these, but know that you can go back to part 1 and get the entire scoop by watching it again. But right now, I just want to refresh your memory for those of you who did watch it. I talked about flipping a note that you get it under contract with Sam Seller, that you're going to buy it from him for, say, $375,000. You're going to flip it to an investor for $410,000, and you make $35,000. Now, this deal is what I started out on. Not this particular deal, but a deal just like this. And it's probably an average of 15 to 20 hours to put this entire deal together. I mean, think about that, and think about, I mean, I had one new student who on his first deal, he made $396,000 profit.
Talk about beginner's luck.
I know. He listened. When I said the bigger the note, the bigger the profit, he went out and he bought a note that he could buy for $2 million. He didn't have $2 million, but he did exactly how I showed him with the simultaneous close, and he sold it to an institutional buyer, and he made almost $400,000 profit on his first deal. Now, was that worth 15 hours of his time? I mean, it can really change your life. Not to mention, it's not that you have to have that large of a profit, but even just getting started in and just infusing your IRA with cash that you wouldn't have been able to put in there. And then we also talked about if you want to build wealth quickly from scratch, and that you could use our arbitrage to create cash now and cash later. And the way that works is
I think Donna's
$1,000.
Oh, there she is.
And did you lose me?
I think your internet dropped out just for a moment, Donna. Can you start over on the slide?
Okie dokie.
Thanks. Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So if you want to build wealth from scratch, you would want to use my arbitrage, and that will help you to create both cash now and cash later. Okay. So the example I used was that in this particular case, the fellow bought a note for $46,000 and it had 180 payments, and we sold just 100 of the payments for $50,000. So he made $4,000 up front, but more importantly, he kept the last 80 payments, and that's to the tune of $45,000. So what a neat way to create some money now and some money later. And he did this without any of his own cash to start. And he also did it in his IRA, so he's putting that money in his IRA. I want you to see this so you know this is not some pie in the sky, well, maybe we could do this. These are real deals, and you can do them. You just need the knowledge, and that's what I'm here to provide. Now, maybe you want to grow your money safely and quickly. Then what you might want to do is buy a seller carryback, and you intend to hold it, but you negotiate an early payoff. And I showed you the example where I bought this note, and I started out with a 30% rate of return. It paid off early, and my return jumped to 88%. Are you getting 88% on your money? I invite you to pull out a calculator. It has to be a financial calculator, and start calculating where your money, where would you be in 10 years if you started out with X amount of dollars and you were getting 88% on your money? I mean, it's these kind of things, and people think it sounds too good to be true. It is too good to be true. No, the numbers do not lie. And it's a matter of principle that when you buy a note at a discount, that when you get that discount, when it pays off early and you get it back quicker than what you thought, your rate of return goes through the roof. Mm-hmm. Now, the important thing is you got to turn around and reinvest it right away in another note. But this is how you get phenomenal rates of return. Did you have something, Bill, you wanted to add?
No, just exactly what you're saying. I know people might be thinking, this really can't be the case, but even people that are sitting out there and just sitting on, their own, mortgage that they have, believe me, if you went in tomorrow to that bank and said, I've got enough, I won the lottery and I'm just here to pay off my house, you might think the bank would be sad because they're going to be losing all those payments. And there is some truth to that, but actually that bank is going to be earning a very high rate of return if you were to do that. So,
well, if they bought at a discount,
that is true.
But either way, a lot of times what happens with the banks is the interest rate has gone up. And so they'd rather get your payoff and then turn around and reinvest it with somebody else. They also build in plenty of prepayment penalties to cover that as well. But the beauty of doing the private notes is that you have two profit centers. And this is where a lot of people miss the boat. They don't get it. You can buy a note that's only paying 10% interest, but you could buy it and be making 30%, because not only are you getting the 10% interest that the borrower is paying, you're also getting the discount that you negotiated. So if you bought that note for $20,000 less than what was owed, that's an extra 20 grand, and that's going to bump up your rate of return. So once you get hold of that concept, you will see like the possibilities are absolutely endless. Okay. Now, a big thing that I get is that, oh yes, I really do want to build wealth, but I don't have time. I've got 5 little kids and I've got a full-time job. Well, you need to think about flipping a note. Again, this transaction here takes about 15, 20 hours. I mean, even if you did one a year, wouldn't that change your life? In this case, my student Rick, on the coaching program that I offer, he did the marketing, he found the deal, and we bought the note from Miss Annie, sold it to Ivan Investor. Rick and I made over $14,000 on the deal, okay? But the real thing that I want you to see here is that because Ivan Investor was astute enough to help the borrower to refinance, and so he got that discount that he negotiated, he got that back a lot quicker. Look, his 17% return jumps to 96%. Now just imagine if you could start getting 96% on your investments. You can easily do it with notes. Do just one note a year. Buy one discounted note, a privately held note, okay? And negotiate an early payoff on that, and your rate of return goes through the roof. Now you've got that much more money to turn around and buy another note, okay? So it's a very simple strategy, and I just can't emphasize enough how powerful it is. This particular strategy of locking into a very nice return of 30%, negotiating an early payoff and getting an 80 or 90% return, that is absolutely one of the most powerful things that I know of that you can do with notes. And it is inevitable. I mean, if you buy at a discount and it pays off early, your rate of return goes up. There's nothing fancy about it. It is a fact, okay? I also mentioned real quick that if you're having trouble with selling your fix and flips, you can sell really fast if you sell with seller financing. And we talked about Deb's deal, and we said she could certainly sell that note. Sorry about that. She could sell that note very quickly if she just seasoned it for 6 to 12 months. She could sell the entire note. But what I showed was maybe a better way to do it, if she doesn't need all of her money right now, she could sell just part of the note. And look at the difference. We showed all the numbers on it, and we said if she sold the whole note, or if she did a partial on it, she'd make over $56,000 compared to the $27,000 that she'd made if she had just sold part of it. I mean, that's double, more than double. Just by knowing a strategy of, hey, instead of selling the whole note, instead of just flipping the whole note, I'm just going to sell part of it. And it more than doubled her profit on the deal. I mean, is that worth it to you to learn how to do notes? I mean, really, people are missing the boat simply because they don't have the knowledge. So another thing, some people are not making enough on their rehabs. Well, you can maximize your fix and flip profits with the partials as well. And I showed you, I mean, this is similar to what I shared with you with Debbie, but you could just sell part of your payments, okay? And you keep the tail end. And so by doing that, you wind up, you sell enough that you can pay off your rehab loan, and you stick $10,400 in your pocket right then and there when you pay it off, plus you get an extra $14,000 later, okay? So you're making way more simply by doing that partial. Partials are one of my favorite things to do. They're extremely profitable. I usually make a lot more money on my partial deals than I do on the whole purchases, okay? Now, if you can't find enough good deals out there to flip, that's where we come in tonight. This is where we broke off last week. And that is to switch to the non-performing notes. These are the notes that are in default, that typically they haven't made a payment for 90 days or more. The thing is that you can use non-performing notes as a back door to getting the property. So if your ultimate goal is to build a portfolio of properties, you need to be looking at the non-performing notes. The fact of the matter is that the community banks, the smaller banks, you can buy their non-performing notes at huge discounts. Now you might be thinking, why in the heck do I want to buy a note if it's not performing? Well, it's very simple. You're going to use that as leverage. because once you buy the non-performing note, you can use it to get the property. You can either complete the foreclosure, just step into the bank's shoes, finish the foreclosure. You either get paid off and you get a great rate of return, or you wind up with a house. Or what I prefer to do, and usually am very successful with on my non-performing notes, is I go to the homeowner and I explain, look, I don't want to foreclose on you. If you will just give me the deed in lieu, here's $500 and you go ahead and move someplace else. A deed in lieu is just what it says. In lieu of foreclosure, so it doesn't mess up my credit, I'll just give you the deed. And many, many times, the homeowner would much rather do that. They're scared to death of working with the bank. They're intimidated by the bankers. But when you step in and you're talking lay people language, and you explain to them that you can help them out of this, and you'll even give them $500 to boot, all they need to do is deed the property to you and move out. They love it. And that is what allows you to acquire the property for pennies on the dollar. This is a deal that one of my students did, and he actually bought 3 non-performing notes from a community bank for $10,000. We're getting a little feedback from someone. Matthew, can you check on that?
Sorry about that. I got muted. Good.
Thank you. Gave me a minute to get a drink. Okay, so
You got a lot of fans.
what's that?
We got a lot of fans screeching. You know, it's like
Yeah. So this student bought 3 non-performing notes for $10,000, and on this particular deal, and I went and I saw this house. This is a real deal. He went to and knocked on the door, introduced himself, and the homeowner says, "Oh, thank God. I've been calling the bank. I just want to move. They said they can't talk to me because they sold the house. Can I just give you the deed? I'm ready to get out of here." Well, I suppose we could work something out. Now, it's not always that easy, but it can be that easy, and it was definitely that easy for this fellow. So he gave my student the deed. It wound up that he got this house, a $45,000 property, for $3,333. Would you like to buy a house for 7 cents on the dollar? That's one way to do it, okay? In fact, it's the only way that I know of to do it. Okay, here is another non-performing note that a different student did. And this was a very cool deal. He had been looking through the MLS and, just checking out, trying to find a property. And he noticed this one. It's a 14,000 square foot warehouse, an office building that was for sale. And he figured out that based on the square footage and $56 a square foot, that this property should sell for about $784,000. Only that was not the case. What was happening was it was listed for $599, and it kept getting reduced and reduced and reduced and reduced. And he's thinking, why in the heck is this not selling? Now, let me tell you a little secret here. Most people would walk away from this. They'd go, man, that's a can of worms. The can of worms oftentimes are your best deal, okay? Because most people don't want to take the time or the initiative to sort through things. And that's exactly what happened on this deal. It turned out that it was a total nightmare. There were all kinds of liens on the property. There's a $150,000 federal tax lien. There was a $190,000 delinquent first mortgage. There were mechanics liens, utility liens. It needed repairs. The owner was in bankruptcy plus a divorce, and he had gotten behind on the real estate taxes. He had $45,000 in property taxes that were sold at the county tax auction, and he didn't redeem them in time. So that meant now that the buyer of those tax liens could file a deed and take the property, okay? That was a big mistake on his part, although I'm sure in his state of mind and financial state, he wasn't able to do anything about it, and that happens sometimes.
But
So
see,
Jim,
that's just it, Donna. A lot of times these things, they work out better for both a note investor and the, the person with the property.
that's exactly right.
A lot of times it really is a win-win situation. It's not like you're, trying to beat someone up on price a lot of the times. A lot of the times, the deed for lieu examples you just gave, it works out better for the borrower, the person, in the property or with the property, and it
That's
works
right.
for you also. So
Because you're buying them at a discount, it is easy to create a win-win. You've got plenty of room there to give the borrower a good deal. I mean, the fellow who owned this warehouse actually helped Jim to do the foreclosure, invited him in, showed him the whole place, told him what was what, gave him all the ins and outs. And he didn't want to do a modification. He was like the other guy I just showed you. He wanted out, and he was happy to help Jim to do that. So Jim decides that he's going to make an offer on this $190,000 first mortgage. I totally can't believe this, Bill. He offers the bank $1,500. I could not believe it. I'm sorry. I would not have the nerve to do that, not on a $190,000 defaulted note. Well, needless to say, the bank declines. So he says, okay, I'll make a better offer. So this time he offers $15,000. But guess what? This time the bank said yes. And I'll tell you why I think they accepted $15,000 for $190,000 UPB, unpaid balance. First of all, they believe that this whoever bought the tax lien is going to go file the deed, and then they're out. Okay, and also they're thinking that I think that they probably had about $15,000 in attorney fees. So at least they're getting some of their costs back. Okay, for whatever reason though, they agreed on $15,000. So Jim goes ahead, he gets it locked up with a note purchase agreement, but before he closes, as part of his due diligence, he checks out, can he get all these liens wiped out? What's it going to take to get this to where he's got a nice solid deed and where he can move forward with an unencumbered property? And he discovers that the guy who bought the tax lien had not filed the tax deed in time. And so that makes that tax lien a moot point. It's gone. If you don't file it within the statutory time, then it's too late. And that's exactly what happened here. I bet that guy could have kicked himself. Can you imagine? I mean, man, he should have had, I would have had that in big letters on my calendar, I'll tell you.
Well, that's just it. It's an expensive mistake, but that's how you learn in life.
I bet he never does that again, Bill.
I bet not.
So Jim goes ahead. He makes sure that all the other liens are going to be wiped out. He buys the note, and then that's when he gets a hold of the owner. And I want to stress here that if you're buying notes from the bank, you cannot contact the homeowner until after you buy the note. Now, I do, in my home study course, teach a completely different way, and that is to find the defaulted notes by contacting the homeowner first and then going to the bank. So it's like you're going in the front door with this deal, but I'm teaching you that you can find the distressed homeowner and go in the back door and contact the bank. And then that way you've been in the property, you know everything about it. And I mean, that's a really good way to do it. But those are two totally different strategies. I don't want anybody to go buy a note from a bank and while they're in their due diligence period, go talk to the homeowner. That is a huge, huge no-no. Okay. So like I said, the owner was very cooperative. He just wants out. He doesn't want to do any kind of modification. And he actually helps Jim to do the foreclosure. So it winds up that Jim forecloses. He gets a $784,000 property for $15,000 plus $4,000 in attorney fees. So just basing it on $550 a square foot rent, he's getting $77,000 a year in rent for life. How would you like to do that deal? Wouldn't that be sweet, Bill?
Yeah, I could live with that. I'd be
I could too.
this is a life-changing thing, guys. I mean, this is a real life example. This isn't, Donna and I sitting down saying, let's see what we can whip up here in a cauldron. This is a real life deal that really, that's some life-changing stuff right there.
It absolutely is. Now, I will say this. I wouldn't start out with a deal like this. If you have no real estate experience, there's no way that I would start with that kind of a deal. I would start by flipping notes, which are very, very simple. But for those of you who have some background with real estate and are comfortable dealing with the real property, this is phenomenal. And if you start looking at these kind of deals that look like a can of worms and you sort them out, a lot of times there is a hidden gem in there and you can make great money because most people won't take the time and effort to do it. Okay, I hope you like that one. Okay, so what if you need quick cash? How can you use a non-performing note to get quick cash? Well, you could flip it. Just like I taught you last week how to flip a seller carryback note, you can flip a non-performer. So you could buy this defaulted note from the bank and simply wholesale it as is to an investor. Mark it up $5,000, $10,000, depends on the size of the note and how much of a discount you negotiated. But you can mark it up and get a very nice profit. And what's really cool about it is you never even own the property. Okay? So, Bill, this would be a good thing for someone who's new to real estate, who does not have real estate experience, but they want to deal with the non-performing notes. If, like, let's say maybe you have a great contact at a bank, okay? You know the vice president of non-performing notes and who is in charge of non-performing notes. Well, you don't know how to deal with the real estate, but you have a list that you can get, and it's exclusive, and you can cherry pick and buy whatever you want. Well, you choose a good non-performing note to buy and simply flip it. You can assign it. You can assign your contract. You can flip it with your simultaneous close. And those are all things that we covered last week, okay? But you can flip that and make a quick $10,000. Never even own the property.
And that's one thing about how Donna teaches, guys, is you will learn a lot even doing just one deal like that. It's not going to be for everybody, like she just said, but if you have a connection, it's very feasible and possible. I personally know probably at least 20 people that would, be interested in buying a non-performing note like she just talked about. And you're going to learn a lot in the whole transaction. Yes, you will need some coaching and some education, but it is doable. And even just taking that little action, you will learn a lot. And that's just life. I mean, you start with, a little bit. You got to crawl before you walk. You got to walk before you run. But, you just got to have a growth mindset and learn something along the way.
That's exactly right. And you do a couple of these, you get used to the verbiage and the different documents and things like that, and then you graduate up to something a little bit more sophisticated, and you just pick it up as you go. Another thing, though, that you could do, oops, I went backwards there, I went too fast, is that you could modify the note before you flip it. So if you flip the note, your investor has no idea what that person wants to do. They don't even know if the person's still living in the house. But if you were to contact the homeowner, modify the note first, sit down with them. Hey, what can you do? I see you're behind. What if we lower the interest rate? And what if we amortize it differently? Can you afford a little bit more, or, whatever it takes. Okay. You can, if they're $25,000 behind, you can take the $25,000 and tack it onto the end of the note. If the problem is a balloon came due, why don't you just fully amortize the note? The thing is that normally, if you were the original holder of that note, you might not want to do it because it would wreck your rate of return. But since you don't have that full amount invested, you bought it at such a huge discount, that's what gives you the room to be flexible and help the borrower. We're going to talk more about that. But now, if you've rewritten the note And even maybe season it, collect 1, 2, 3 payments. Now, isn't that a much better note than the one where you don't even know what's going to happen yet? So instead of $10,000 profit, sell that one to them for $20,000. Okay, because you've just increased the value of that note just by sitting down and talking to the homeowner. Okay. Okay. Now, perhaps you're looking for monthly cash flow, maybe to replace a job, maybe to supplement a job. Maybe you're a stay-at-home mom or dad and you're just looking for extra income, so you want to be at home with the kids, or you're taking care of your parents or whatever. You could modify a non-performing note. So you buy it as a non-performer from the bank. Let's say, for example, that you buy this non-performing note. Then you use what's called a forbearance agreement. I have a great forbearance agreement in my home study course that allows you to keep the homeowner in the house, okay? Most of the time, the homeowner has to leave, but there's a lot of them that want to stay. So if you can sit down and rewrite, restructure the note, keep them in the house, you can make super high rates of return. And it's a great win-win, like what Bill was talking about. As an example, let's say that you have this $115,000 note that you bought for $50,000. You could rewrite the note for $100,000. Why did I do that? In my example, the house was only worth $100,000. And I don't want anybody to be upside down when I rewrite a note. I think psychologically that's a bad deal. I want to set them up to win. I want them to be empowered and happy and, hey, I get to save my house. I want them to feel good that, man, I don't want to miss this payment because this is allowing me to save my house. So I would, because I bought this for $50,000, you see, I got plenty of room there that I can simply write off the 15. And by the way, I don't really write it off. What I do is I make it that if they pay as agreed, at the end of the note, I write off the 15, okay? So that's another incentive for them to pay on time. But anyway, I rewrite this note for $100,000. I'll amortize it over 360 months, 8% interest. The payments are $733.76. And then I might tack a balloon on of $87,725. And the idea is that that gives the borrower 10 years to get their credit repaired, to get situated a new job, whatever it is. Now this works out that you're getting a 20% return. And you're going, but wait a minute, how am I getting a 20% return? They're only paying 8. It's very simple. You only invested $50,000 in this note, and you're getting payments as though you had invested $100,000 at 8%. And that works out that you're actually on your 50% investment, your rate of return is actually 20%. Okay? So do you see how by having this discount, and remember the 2 profit centers, they're paying 8% interest, that's one profit center, and you negotiated a $50,000 discount, okay, that's your other profit center. And that's how you wind up with a 20% return. Now, another thing that you could do in this case, instead of, what you could do is you could season this note. After you have restructured it with the forbearance agreement, simply sit back and collect payments for 12 months. Because if you collect payments for 12 months, now it's seasoned. So you've turned it into a re-performing note, okay? And now when you go to sell it, you bought this note for 40 cents on the dollar. Or was that 50 cents on the dollar? I can't remember. I believe it was 40 cents on the dollar. Let's back up and see so that I don't want to be telling anybody wrong. You bought a $115,000 note for $50,000, okay? So that's probably 40 cents on the dollar. Okay, so at any rate, let me get back here. So you buy this note for 40 cents on the dollar. If you turn it into a re-performing note, now you can sell it for 80 cents on the dollar. You have just doubled your money in 1 year. And all you did was restructure the note, season it, give them 12 months so they can prove that they can pay on time. And look, your rate of return increases to 62%. Isn't that sweet? You guys, it's all about the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
They don't lie, you know? I love the numbers. And I'll tell you, in my home study system, I have a really cool book. It's a little red book, and people love it. It's like if you hate numbers, you'll love it. And if you love numbers, you'll love it. If you hate numbers, I mean, that's what everybody says, Bill. I'm not kidding you. I was at this a big note convention, and I had a fella buy my course, and the next day he came in when I was teaching calculator. And he came in and he's waving my little red making dollars and cents with your financial calculator. He says, this little book is worth the entire amount I paid for the whole system. I mean, he was so excited because even if you don't like the numbers, I show you, bam, 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 step by step, 4 steps, how you can discount a note. And I tell you exactly what to put in the calculator. And if you set up every deal just like that in 4 steps, you can figure out what the real value is. Actually, add 2 more steps to figure out, what you're going to sell it for and what your profit is. Okay. So in 6 easy steps, you could be calculating discounted notes. And it's a matter of having a system and having the knowledge. And that's what I'm here to provide. Now, on the other hand, if you love numbers, then you're going to love the book because it's going to open your eyes to all kinds of things that you never knew existed. Like most people really don't get that there's 2 profit centers in a note. They never thought about it. But that's what enables you to get such a high rate of return when they're paying a fraction of the return that you're getting.
Donna, there's even some note investors that probably wouldn't know that. And the other thing that, that's really a strength of Donna's materials, guys, is she has very detailed information about processes and checklists, and it's all in writing as to how these things work out. It's really impressive.
Thank you, Bill. The reason is because 30 years ago, when I set out to do this, I took several people's courses, and it was so aggravating because, one, I paid a lot of money for them. I didn't pay the money. The attorney who taught me the business paid the money for them. But knowing that, you expect that they're going to tell you how to do it. They don't. They tell you enough so that you'd like to do that, but they don't tell you how. And so I wound up, I had an attorney who taught me this business, and for 2 years I ran his mortgage company. And so as he would teach me, the way that I learn, the way that I operate, because I made up a checklist. And every time he'd show me something different that I'd missed or that I needed to do, man, that went on the checklist. And so I literally built all these forms. These are not somebody else's forms and documents. They're all what I personally designed in my process of learning how to do notes. And they've changed over the years. Different things come up, and so you have to fine-tune them as you go. And so that's why I'm so particular, because that's the way I do my deals. And I don't want to just show you what's possible. Right now I'm showing you what's possible. But with my home study system or my media set, that's going to show you the key of how to do it. And that's what you really need. Okay, so the modifications and forbearances, the cool thing is that the homeowner gets to stay in the house on reasonable terms. A lot of people use this as a ministry. They'll buy a pool of non-performing notes from the bank. They try to do a modification and a forbearance agreement to help people save their houses, okay? It's a great plan because even though you're doing that and you're helping them to stay in the house, you get a really high rate of return. Again, you're probably tired of me saying this, but because you bought the note at a discount. So it is truly a real win-win. I hope you like that. That is a very cool strategy. Another way, if you need quick cash, is that you can settle a non-performing note. And that's good for whether you need cash now or whether you need cash later, or maybe you need both, okay? Now, what do I mean by settling a non-performing note? Well, you're going to buy a defaulted note from the bank. And you sit down, and how I always start my thing out, I say, I know you're behind. You're $25,000 behind. What can you do? I'm here to help you to work this out. I want you to keep your house. I'm trying to help you save the house. What exactly can you do? I find out what they're capable of, and then I see if that will work for me. Am I able to restructure the deal? So they might say, hey, I don't have 25,000, but I got 15. Well, if 15 works for me, I'm going to take a one-time cash payment. Or they might say, I can't really afford the $800 a month that I'm supposed to be paying, but if you could lower my payment to $600 a month, we can handle that. Okay. Or you might take the 25,000, like I said before, tack it onto the end and amortize it. And instead of them having to come up with 25,000, now you bump up their payment $50 or $100, and you collect it that way. And the thing is that there are endless possibilities. So you find out what they're capable of doing, and then you put a pencil to it, a calculator to it, and you see what kind of rate of return you're going to get. And what's very cool about that is you never own the property. Isn't that sweet? Mm-hmm. So you can tell I'm big on not owning the property. I've done both. I've owned properties, all kinds of properties, and I've owned all kinds of notes. And hands down, I will always take the notes over the property. But I go ahead, Bill. I didn't interrupt you. Okay.
Oh, that's okay. I wasn't trying to interrupt you either. I believe it was Rockefeller who said, own nothing, control everything,
Yes.
Right along those lines.
I wonder if he was thinking about notes, because that's exactly that's the truth about the notes. You control the property without owning it, because when you own the property, you own all the headaches that go with it.
I'd strongly imagine that man owned at least one note in his life.
I think so. I really, really think so. So, okay, so these are just a few of the examples of absolutely tremendous opportunities with the non-performing notes. And the sky is the limit. But I do want to mention that the non-performing notes are much riskier. It really bothers me that there are a lot of gurus out there just saying, hey, you want to learn how to do notes, you want to make a lot of money, buy a non-performing note from a bank. That is not where I suggest starting. I always recommend that you do a couple of the seller carryback notes, because they're so simple to do. Plus, my coaching program, I no longer coach on the non-performing notes just because I no longer have a staff of 7 people. I downsized. I love being a one-person shop, plus Matthew is my virtual assistant with all the technology and everything. And man, we got a great team, just the 2 of us. So that's what I prefer to do, and that's why I don't coach on the non-performers. But the seller carryback notes are so simple. I can handle a pipeline of 10 deals by myself, okay? And so that's why I offer coaching on the seller carrybacks. What I would like to do, I have a special offer that I want to share with you. And then I'll go through, we have a couple questions, one that I stuck in my head, and Matthew, maybe you have some other ones that people have sent in, or if anybody on the call has any questions, whether about last week's seller carryback presentation or what we've talked about tonight, I think you can enter that in the chat. Let me share my opportunity with you. Just take a couple minutes, and then we'll get right to the questions, okay?
Yes, we are live, guys. You're welcome to ask really whatever you like. I know I mentioned I did a short video earlier. Maybe there's someone here who can actually stump Donna. I don't think that's very likely at all, but maybe. So I'm sure.
You know what? People say, don't you get nervous when you talk in front of 1,000 people? It used to scare me to death because I was afraid somebody would ask a question that I didn't know the answer to. And you know when I stopped getting nervous? When I realized that if I don't know the answer to the question, it's okay, because I know enough, And so ask whatever you want, and hopefully I will know the answer, okay? Okay, so this is my special introductory offer. If you want to get your feet wet And actually, I say get your feet wet, but this is absolutely enough that you could go out and do a deal, okay? This is my 2018 Note Buyers Academy media set. So this is my 4-day event from last year, okay? And you're gonna get online access to the videos from last year's event, audio, you can download the class manual, and you'll get 10 essential forms and checklists. That's everything that you need to get started doing notes, okay? And I'm offering that to you tonight for only $997. That is a great deal to get that comprehensive. That's 4 days of my live teaching. And at those 4 days, I cover everything. I cover all different types of notes. I spend a lot of time on seller carrybacks because I believe that's a great foundation. And then we spend a good amount of time on the non-performing notes. I teach how to create notes. If you're a landlord or a rehabber, I show you how you can use notes to close more deals, make more money on your deals. I will cover private lending. I mean, there's just a whole gambit of different strategies that we cover. And so with this 2018 media set, you're going to get what we went over last year. I will mention this, that every academy is different. Yeah, we use some of the same foundational things, but it's different. It's a different marketplace for one. I have different examples because I try to share with you the deals that I've been doing in today's marketplace. So you're going to get different examples. You get different people interacting, okay? Every academy is going to be different. But at least this would get you started. But I do want to tell you about my upcoming academy, which is September 19th through the 22nd. It's next month. And here's a few pictures. My academy is an experience, okay? It truly is. It's not anything like any boot camp that you've been to. Not only do you get all of the training, but it's so much more than that. You're going to learn all different aspects of investing. If you need quick cash, I'll show you multiple deals on how you can make quick money. If you need to supplement your income, if you need to grow your retirement, I'm going to show you how to use a self-directed IRA. In fact, Carl Fisher with Camaplan, he's going to spend the entire time with us. That's how important growing your IRA is. He's coming for the entire event, okay? So he will be there. You can rub shoulders with him, ask him your questions about how to invest in your self-directed IRA. He'll be giving his own presentation for you. So whatever, you will easily be able to glean a lot of different strategies that will help you to make your own game plan for whatever you're trying to accomplish. The way it's designed, the class is relatively small. There'll probably be about 50, 60 people there. I provide all your meals. And the reason I do this is instead of having everybody just running out, trying to find the fast food place and all of that, we go, you can see this first picture here. That's up on the 16th floor of the Radisson. The Radisson is the Round Hotel in Covington, and it overlooks the Cincinnati riverfront, okay? And so we go up there. It gives you a great chance to network with people. So that's the other really important part of this. It's not just education. It's also the networking. You will make friends for a lifetime. And you'll not only make friends, but people who can help you in your note business. You might have a great person who will buy mobile home paper. Somebody else might have a great person to buy commercial paper. You know, some people specialize in non-performers, other people specialize in the performing notes. So it gives you plenty of time to network and get to know like-minded people. The synergy that is created in the 4-day event is phenomenal. And then on Saturday night, I take you on a riverboat cruise. This is the River Belle. What we do is we go up river for about an hour and a half. We have a really nice surf and turf dinner right on the riverboat. and then we turn around and come back down. By the time we get down there, it's like a beautiful nighttime skylight, you know, the whole works. It's just gorgeous. It's awesome after being in class for 3 days to break it up that last night by getting out and having some fun and getting to know people and just getting away from the classroom. So that is coming up. It's September 19th through the 22nd. That's Thursday through Sunday. It's 4 days of live teaching with me. The registration is regularly $2,497 plus $600 for your spouse. The $600 is really to cover the food costs. That's almost my out-of-pocket food cost for each person. But here's my special deal. I think you're going to love this. I've just offered you the 2018 Note Buyers Academy Media Set for $997. You get that tonight, and I'll give you 30 days to upgrade. So you can check it out. You can go through them. You can watch the entire last year's 4 days and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe she shows you all this stuff. You know, and when you're totally blown away and go, man, I gotta be there this year, you got 30 days to check it out and then upgrade to the live event. Not for $2,497, but for only an additional $997 plus $600 for your spouse. That is a no-brainer, slam dunk deal. I promise you, you are not going to find this quantity and quality of education anywhere for 2 payments of $997. And I'm giving you a chance to try it out first before you commit to that second payment. So just as a recap, you get the 2017 media set for only $997. Okay, that's your audio, video, manual, and checklists. Okay, and then you have the 4-day live event coming up September 19th through the 22nd. You can add that as an upgrade. You have 30 days to do it. You can add that as an upgrade for only $997 additional plus $600 for your spouse. You got 30 days to do it. 30 days after you buy the media set. And don't forget that it includes all of your meals plus the dinner boat cruise, the riverboat cruise. So this means you're going to get both the Academy Media Set and the live event for only $1,994. That is a steal. Okay. Now, you might already know, though, that you want to do both. Because I know we've got people that have actually been waiting to sign up. Okay. If that's the case, this is your lucky night because you can sign up for both for only $1,794. If you don't need the 30-day test drive of it and see if you want to sign up, if you're ready to commit to both of them, you can come to both for only $1,794 plus $600 for your spouse. Okay, so that's a great deal. I hope you realize it because I'm thrilled to be able to offer it to you, and I hope you'll be thrilled to come. To sign up, just go to thenotebuyer.com/bill. All the details are there, and there's even more details about all the different things that are covered and everything. Check it all out. Also, I promised you a free gift if you stay to the end. Go to thenotebuyer.com/bill, and you can download my advanced calculator course. That's where I take one deal, and I do 20 different scenarios. You're going to buy the non-performing note and flip it. Or you're going to buy the non-performing note and get the deed. You're going to buy the non-performing note, get the deed, sell the house. Buy the non-performing note, get the deed, sell the house with a seller carryback note. And then the next one is sell the note. You know, I mean, like, I feel like this is a house that Jack built, you know, but I go through all that. And Bill, I think I mentioned this the other night. My favorite one, what I do is I calculate the rates of return and I compare all the different rates of return to decide which is the best way to go. There are actually sometimes where it comes up on my calculator, too large to compute. Yep. Those are the kind of deals that I like to do, where my return is too large to compute. So, okay, so feel free to download that. Go to thenotebuyer.com/bill. Okay, so without further ado, let's go over our questions. There was one question in particular that I made a point to remember.
Okay, I'll kind of moderate the questions here. How's that?
Okay, can I jump in with my first question though? Can I give?
Oh yeah, go right ahead.
I think this was Fred who asked this, and if I got that wrong, forgive me. But he had studied it was a free report on how to buy a note with no money down, how to buy a house with no money down, and still give the seller cash at closing. And the way that you do that is you help the seller of the house to sell with seller financing. And then you sell the first so many payments. You sell the partial. Maybe it's 3 years, maybe it's 5 years. It depends on how much money you want to raise. But you sell, let's say 5 years of payments. And then you can take that money and give that money to the note seller, the property seller, or you can keep part of it. Whatever works for you. It's totally flexible. And so Fred's question was, can you really sell part of an unseasoned note? And the answer is absolutely. And the reason is the loan to value on this note is so safe that people would say, man, I hope that they default, because either whoever's holding that back end of the note, the homeowner, they're going to step in and they're going to pay off any default because they want to protect their position. Okay, so that in all likelihood is what's going to happen. Or if they don't, you foreclose and take the property. That's never going to happen when you buy just a little partial loan. Nobody in their right mind would allow that to happen. So yes, it's a super safe deal because you have so much equity that is covering that. Okay, and that's why. But you are right that normally on a note, most people want some seasoning on a note before they buy part of it. But this was just if you notice the way I structured it, it was a super, super safe deal. Okay, Bill, I'm all yours. What are the questions?
Okay, Roger is asking, I thought Dodd-Frank made balloons difficult, or at least to do more than one per year.
Okay, that is very true. But if you are the note holder, that is a different scenario. So if you are carrying back the note and you have stepped into the position of whoever originated that note, okay, there is a one-time exclusion for doing that. And that is if the seller, when you do a seller carryback, and that is the only note that the seller created, and the seller has to be a person or a trust or an estate. Okay, that's the only time. Okay. So you know what? Actually, if you had bought that note, man, Roger, you caught me on this one. Because if you had bought that note from the bank, unless that was an REO that they bought, which it probably wasn't, then you would not want to add a balloon to that. Roger, I owe you one.
Uh-oh.
Is this Roger from Columbus? Is it Roger from Columbus?
Let's see.
From our note masters? Roger, I owe you dinner.
Roger from San Antonio.
You got to come to Cincinnati to collect, Roger. If you come to Cincinnati, I'll take you out to dinner. So, but that is a great point. But a lot of people misunderstand that, and that is very important. That it has to be a person, a trust, or an estate. It's designed to help people who own their own home. They turned around and sold it, and they're trying to help them because that's their own house. But there's also, if you do less than 3 deals, there's another exclusion. But those are LLCs, people who are in the business. Could be, small business and you're not doing a whole lot. But in that case, you can't do a balloon. So Thank you, Roger, for keeping me honest.
Hope to see you in Cincinnati, Roger.
Yeah.
Okay, Jeff Wolf from San Diego asks, how do you create a seller carryback pipeline of deals to work?
That's very easy. You market. And that's one of the special things. And you can pick that up in the media set. I give you over 20 different ways to market. The least expensive way is to market on Craigslist. You can either, they call it scraping Craigslist, where you look for people who have notes to sell. That's one way of doing it. Or you can advertise, I pay cash for mortgages. Got any seller carrybacks, call me. I have two gentlemen who are just coming up with deals right and left, and they're actually advertising like what I just said on Craigslist, that they pay cash for mortgages. So Craigslist is a great way. LinkedIn, I have one little gal that she came up with 10 deals right off the bat, brand new to note buying, but she took a course on how to build a business, not necessarily a note business, but any business on LinkedIn. And she started building her list, and she would ask people, to connect, and she would start an email conversation. Hey, I buy notes. I buy both seller carrybacks as well as non-performers. Is there something that I can help you with? If you find any of these, let me know. How can I help you in return? And she came up with 10 deals right off the bat. So LinkedIn is a great source, even Facebook. I've got people who are advertising on Facebook. I have one fellow who's buying Google AdWords. That's another great source. A lot of my students buy a list, and I even can get you a discount. If you have my materials, you can get a discount from some of the list providers. And then I have sample postcards and letters that you can send out. And so that's another way. That's more expensive because you got to pay for the postage and pay for the list. If you're wanting to do this with as little money as possible, then I recommend Craigslist, Facebook, Google AdWords, and LinkedIn, okay? The other thing that you want to do is build up a referral base. And just think of anybody who either holds notes themselves or who knows other people who hold notes. So probate attorneys are one of my favorites. Divorce attorneys, real estate attorneys, mortgage brokers, realtors, financial planners, CPAs, realtors, builders. I mean, the list goes on. There's all kinds of people that know of other people. Financial planners, I think I said that one. But you want to build up a system and offer referral fees. Offer to give them $500 if you close a deal that they've referred to you. Now, I got to tell you that realtors cannot accept a referral fee. Most attorneys and CPAs, they're professional people. They don't need a referral. When I say pay a referral fee, I'm thinking more like a fellow investor, okay, that is not licensed. But the other parties, the professional people, they still love you because you're helping them to help their client, and they're getting paid by the client. So that's how you find the deals. And if you've got enough things in the fire, you can build up a pipeline of 10 deals. What you don't want to do, and I see this too often, is people do one thing. They'll say, well, I've been advertising on Craigslist and I haven't got anything. Well, I don't know why you didn't. And John over here, he's got 5 deals that he got off of doing that. I don't know why that works, but what I do know is John is not only on Craigslist, but he's on Facebook, and he's doing all these other things, and he's sending out letters to attorneys and different things. And the more irons that you have in the fire, the bigger the pipeline that you're going to build. Boy, that was a long-winded answer.
Well, it was a very thorough answer. That's what Donna does, guys. Roy Johnson asked, and Matthew mostly answered. Roy was asking about, is there a 2019 media set? And Matthew said it should be out sometime later this year, October-ish, somewhere around there. Is that correct, Donna?
That's right. We can't put that out until after we have it, which is September 19th through the 22nd.
Okay, great. And Roy Johnson had one other question. Is having a website necessary?
It is not necessary, but I will tell you that most of the people who are building that pipeline, like I just talked about, they have a website. And the thing is, it gives you credibility. So even if you're building a network, it's nice to have, it doesn't have to be real extensive. It could be just a little 3 or 4 page website. You know, it's something that says, I buy notes, sell me your note, gives the benefits. Do you need cash now? You know, it tells, you know, have some FAQs on there so that, you know, how easy it is, how quick it is, what they need to do, what the process is, who you are, what's your background, you know, things like that. Even if you don't have an actual place for them to submit a deal, which is ideal because I get a lot of those off of my website, where they actually just fill it in and it comes direct to me. But even if you don't offer that, at least get some information up there to give, it's your credibility package so that people know that you're for real.
Yeah, Roy, I can tell you I have a website, and I actually had someone ask me once. She asked, do you have a website? And I said, yes. And I started to give her the address and everything. And she just flat out told me, oh, I'm not even going to look at it. I just wanted to see if you had one.
See?
You know, sometimes even just the very fact that you have one, that's sometimes what people want to see.
That's pretty good.
So then Fred submitted a question via email here, Donna.
Okay.
If you were starting today in 2019 in the note buying business, what would be your top 3 things you would do in terms of marketing to find note holders to buy notes from?
I would still send out my letters. That is the way I actually started.
Mm-hmm.
I would still send out letters. I would definitely do Craigslist.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be a toss-up.
Oh.
No, I was going to say it would be a toss-up between LinkedIn and Google AdWords, but I think that I would do LinkedIn because if I'm spending money on the letters and postage, then I would do Craigslist and LinkedIn. Oh, but wait a minute. What is probably more important, the big thing that I did besides buying a list is I was real active at the Cincinnati RIA Group. Like, your local RIA group is one of the most important things for you to do. I would put that above. So I would send out letters, do Craigslist, both scraping and putting an ad on I Pay Cash for Mortgages. And I would really establish a presence at my local RIA group. But the second note that I bought was from an investor at the Cincinnati RIA Group who had sold a house, a rental, and carried back the note, and she was looking for money for the next deal. So I can't stress enough the value of being at your local RIA meetings.
And right along those lines, Fred, I don't know where you live, but, you know, most RIA groups, they're happy to have volunteers. And
Absolutely.
I say this partly from personal experience. I am very active in my RIA group here. It's called CORI. It's run by Vina Jones-Cox. And I actually started and run each month a note investing subgroup. And you can probably imagine that does a lot in terms of kind of elevating my visibility. Every single month, you know, I'm there running the meeting and I have the chance to speak at it frequently. That helps to improve your public speaking ability and just your ability to even communicate about notes. And you just generally kind of become known as, you know, the expert in that area, or at least one of the experts in note investing.
That's exactly right. And even if you're new, the fact that you're head of the group says something about you. What I did was they have a hard time usually getting people to run for the board. They're always begging people. And so within a few months, when it came time for elections, I ran for, and I got right on the board, and I was program chairman for 2 years. And I got to tell you, that did take a lot of time, a lot more than I had planned on, but I would not be here today had I not started out with that, because I met so many people and it just catapulted me. It gave me immediate credibility. And so, I mean, back then we had about 400 people in the group, and everybody was bringing me their deals.
So Fred is getting his money's worth. Good for Fred. Fred has one more question. Are the deals in the free calculator course possible in today's market? Would an investor really buy a partial with no seasoning?
So it was Fred that asked that question.
Yes.
Fred, honestly, I'd have to go back and look at, because I don't remember all of the specific deals that I put in there. But absolutely yes. If you structure that partial correctly, and there is plenty of equity behind the piece that you're buying, and everybody would want that note. It's like, okay, a great example, the first deal that I ever did, and it was a partial. It was a partial. First deal I ever did, it was a $28,000. No, I bought it for $28,000. Let me just think on this. Shoot, I should know this by heart. I've said it so many times. It was like let's call it 31,000, something like that. $31,000 note secured by $114,000 for family. Okay. So right off the bat, if I bought the whole note, it would have been so safe. Okay. But in that particular case, I bought the first 3 years of payments, and I paid $20,000 for the first 3 years of payments on that. And man, if he had defaulted, I would have absolutely loved it. What probably would have happened is that whoever was holding the tail end of that note, which was his brother in this particular case, he probably would have said, if I would have foreclosed because I had first position on my 3 years of payments, so let's say the borrower defaults, I foreclose, his brother would have stepped in. Well, his brother was, well, no, that's not quite how that would have worked, because it just so happened the guy that was selling it didn't have any money. That's why it wouldn't have worked. But most of the time what happens is if you buy a partial, whoever's retaining the last bit of it, they're not going to let that partial go into default because they don't want to lose their part of it. Okay, so typically if the borrower defaults on it, then whoever kept the tail end is probably going to step in and either buy you out or start making payments to you. I mean, that's usually what's going to happen. And if they don't, then you go celebrate and go out and you go ahead and foreclose, and you're either going to get paid off or you get the property. You got a super high rate of return. It's very awesome. Very awesome.
Yeah, I agree with what Donna said, Fred. The answer to almost anything is it depends. Would an investor really buy a partial with no seasoning? Possibly. I mean, if it's a, $200,000 house and they're looking at buying a $50,000 partial, what do you think? Do you think that has, at least some degree of safety if the house is worth 4 times what the amount of the partial is? If everything went really bad, is there a really good chance you would at least get repaid your initial investment? Yes. And, would someone be happy with, a 6% rate of return? If not a 6% rate of return, and 8%. If not 8, then 10. Would 10% rate of return with that amount of security on the back end, would that be enough to entice someone to buy a partial even if it did not have seasoning? What about the borrower? What if that borrower had a 700 credit score? What if they had 750? What if they had 800? So it's kind of hard to say for sure without a little bit more information.
Right.
Yes, it has been my experience that depending on the deal, that yes, an investor might buy a partial with no seasoning.
I should I should qualify that they would do it, assuming everything else looks good. If this is some dumpy house in a war zone, I don't care if it's a 10% loan to value. I have no desire to own that, so I'm not going to buy a partial, a whole purchase, or anything. It's not what I want. But assuming that this is a decent property in an area that I would like to invest in, and my cardinal rule that I teach you is never buy a note where you wouldn't want to own the property. Okay, so if it's in Timbuktu and you don't want to own a property there or have to sell it, then it doesn't matter how good the deal is, you're going to say no. Okay, but assuming that it's a good property, assuming that if you don't want to get the property back, then I'm going to look at the borrower's credit and their employment status. And if they're a fly-by-night drug addict, whatever, then I'm not going to buy a partial on it. But so everything, you have to look at the total picture. And assuming other things check out, yes, if it has plenty of security and it looks like a decent house, decent note, decent borrower, I would buy a partial all day long with no seasoning.
Okay, great. And then Donna, we got one more here. Jenny sent a question via email. For a land contract, do the terms have to in capital, mention an interest rate and a sale price? There's one more, but I'll let you answer that first part.
Oh boy. How much time do we have here? Because boy, do I have a story I could tell you on this.
That is a loaded, there's a lot
what I'm talking about.
To get into.
Do I dare get into all of that? Jenny, yes. Does it have to have the sale price? I would want the sale price in there, and because it's a contract. So you got to have the sale price. I mean, that's very important. And how much is put down, and whatever is left is the amount of the loan that they're going to pay over time. And so you have to have that. And if you're going to charge interest, you have to state the interest. I recently came across a note that was it was the worst note that I've seen, and it was the worst, it was a land contract, and it was the worst land contract I've seen, and it was the worst purchase contract. And one of my students was going to buy this note, and it in fact had signed the purchase agreement. It was horrible. It had, like, on the land contract itself, no place did it tell the P&I. So it gave the PITI, but we all know that taxes and insurance change. So if it doesn't even say that, how do you know how much is really owed? So how do you determine if it's in default? And it didn't give a maturity date. So it's like, and I think they hadn't stated the interest properly. It was like this whole string of things. There was no way that if that person, you could never decide if they were really in default. And so it's critical that the main pieces, you're on a land contract, it would be the purchase, the sale price of the property, the down payment, the amount that's being paid. You need the term, you need a definite maturity date on there. You need the amount of the monthly payments, whether or not taxes and insurance is being escrowed. And if so, what's the process for that? You have to have the interest rate. You always want to specify that it is, for example, 8% per annum compounded monthly. People leave that out. And an attorney told me that if you don't put compounded monthly on it in Ohio, it's very possible a judge could award you simple interest on that deal. I mean, that would be a huge loss for you.
Yeah, those just couple of words there could end up making a big difference in your return on an investment there. And then Jenny's follow-up question to that, closely related here, Donna. Can I just ask the buyer to pay X amount of dollars per month for Y amount of months, and then the house is theirs? So basically, that would not really be specifying a purchase price. Just, for example, can she just say, the buyer has to pay $500 per month for, 360 months, and then the house is theirs?
You could do that. I don't know if it's a smart thing to do, but it is clearly a contract. The terms are very clear. They have to pay $500 a month for 30 years, and then it's theirs. The problem would be, what if they pay off early? I would never, ever do that, Jenny. And the reason is, if they pay off early, and let's say they have 20 years of payments at $500 each. Now, do they owe you 20 years of payments, so 240 payments times 500? You would have to spell that out in there. The thing is, you have to look at the potential scenarios. What happens if they default? Then how much is going to be owed? Like, so do you have a clause in there that says that if they're 30 days late, you have the right to call the note due in full, which means that they have to pay the balance of, for example, $500 a month times 240 monthly payments. It just needs to be clear. You need to know when that note is in default and when it's paid off. And the simplest way to do that is with an interest rate. I'm curious why you don't want to put that in. Are you afraid that you're charging too high of interest and it might scare them away? I'm just wondering what your incentive is for doing that. Jenny, if you care to respond back and we're still on, I'd be happy to talk to you about that.
Well, Jenny, you're welcome to respond back. In the meantime, we do have one more question here from Carla. Hello, Carla. Hope you're doing well tonight. Who pays for the appraisal when flipping a performing note? Donna?
Good point. I want to say one more comment on Jenny's deal. The reason that I would never do that, I would never buy that note. Well, I shouldn't say that because I don't know what your terms are. And if you've got a 30% interest or something and you've got everything else spelled out, I might. But
you would probably discount him heavily.
Yes. It's so unconventional. So, like you said, Bill, it depends. Going to Carla's question. If you're doing my coaching program where I'm coaching you on the seller carryback deals, I pay for the appraisal. Okay. But if you are doing these deals on your own, you would be out of pocket for the appraisal. The title, nowadays, you can typically just pay the title out of the closing. So usually you don't have to come up with upfront money. I know of a few title companies that require that. But if you're doing the coaching with me, then I would pay the upfront fee, but I don't even know when the last time was I paid an upfront title fee. I don't even remember ever paying an upfront title fee. So the appraisal is what you would be out of pocket on.
Okay. Any other questions? Looks like Jenny's not getting back. That's okay. Hopefully, I thought Donna gave a lot of good input there, Jenny. Any other questions? This is the last call. Going once, going twice. We do have a thank you. Thank you very much, John, for joining us this evening, and Jeff and everybody else that is here.
Yes,
okay, Donna.
And thanks, Bill, for having me on. I greatly appreciate that. I want to encourage you all to take advantage of the media set. That is a steal with all your essential forms, the checklists, and everything that you need. And seriously consider coming to the Academy. I promise you, you will love it. In fact, I give an unconditional guarantee back on that if you stay for the first 2 days, if after the second day you aren't fully convinced that you've got your money's worth, you can leave and I will give you back your money. That's how sure I am that you will be so happy. And what's so cool about it is that on Monday morning, when you go home, after eating, breathing, sleeping notes for 4 days, even though you've never bought a note, you will feel like a pro. Mm-hmm. And I have a number of people who were there last year that are coming back this year. I usually get 4 or 5 people that come back, and they'll come back repeatedly because it is that good. And every year it's different.
Yeah, and Donna's exactly correct, guys. She packs a lot, just a tremendous amount of value, tremendous amount of education into there. Her level of detail is very, very high. Like she just said, it was kind of an aside, but imagine just a couple of words making a big difference in what you think you bought versus what you really bought. Wouldn't
Exactly.
you really like to know, what those words are and what to look for? Donna teaches really good content on both performing notes, non-performing notes. Like we talked about a little bit, you can kind of tailor a lot of things in note investing to your life, your circumstance, and what you want to do. Donna does not teach just a boilerplate, one size fits all for everybody.
We're not a one-trick pony.
Yep, that's exactly correct. And what she says, she draws a lot of very good people. I still talk frequently with the people I met last year, and the riverboat cruise that she talks about, it really is gorgeous. I've got gorgeous pictures still on my phone from the cruise last year.
And Bill, you're coming again this year, you and Heidi.
Yes, yes.
So.
Joe, we got one last minute question. Way to go.
I knew that would happen. That's kind of why I was waiting a little bit.
Okay, very good. How do I access the bonus advanced calculator? You go to that website. It's just over my shoulder here, Joe. thenotebuyercom/bill/. So thenotebuyercom/bill. And that has the recording from part one. Are we going to get the recording from this up there also, Matthew?
Yeah, I'll have that up tonight. So that same link, they can go to that and watch last week's and this replays.
Okay. So yes, there'll be a recording of last week's and then tonight on there. And Jeff Wolf also asks a questions here, Donna. Can you speak to something about your coaching? So we'll say what you say, and then I'll be happy to chime in also.
The coaching, I think, is invaluable. If I had not had the attorney to teach me, I would have never picked it up. I've shared with several of you that I went to 2 weekend seminars put on by a well-known guru and still didn't know what a discounted note was, okay? So I really get that you need the coaching, and that's why I offer it. I only offer it on the seller carryback deals. And like I said, that's because I can maintain a pipeline of a lot of deals, and I can do everybody justice and close the deals. And the way it works is that you focus on the marketing. And when you find a deal, you fill out the submission form and you email it over to me. Hopefully you've got a copy of the note as well. I really like that. Don't have to have it, but I prefer to have it. And then I will evaluate the note, and I send you back in writing a complete evaluation. Hey, this looks like a great deal because it's got a low loan to value, and look, it's been seasoned for 35 months, and this has got a solid pay history, and all this kind of stuff. Or I'll say, you know what, this is a little bit funky right here. I'm not sure this is going to work. Maybe we can do it if we can offer an investor a 12% return. So if we could sell it at 12% and you want to make $10,000, here's our offer. And then I write up the offer in red. When you get an email back from me, anything in red, you could literally read to the note seller. So that's so when you're working on the fly, you can pull it up. And I mean, I suggest that you ad lib, but you really could read it. My point is that I take the guesswork out. If they accept the offer, you let me know. I do all the documents, including the note purchase agreement. I send it over to you. Basically, you act as the liaison with the note seller, and you gather up all the documents, send them over to me. I am going to handle all the evaluation, the due diligence, setting up the closing. We use my investors, and when we close, we split the net profit. I do take $14.95 off the top, and that is for a processing fee, because when I do get 10 deals, sometimes I do have somebody help me with the processing. So that's to cover the processing. And so when we close, we split the profits. And I will tell you that I got some people that the goal was to get you to close one deal, okay? Because if I can help you to close one deal and you see that it works, you'll keep doing it. But I have several people that they go, Donna, we're marketers. We can find the deals, but we don't want to do any of the documents. Will you keep on doing it? I'll do as many of these as you want to do. I'll split with you all the time. So it's a great deal, great offering.
And that's what I was going to add, guys, is, if you want to do these deals, Donna knows exactly how she wants this paperwork completed. And rather than trying to explain it from scratch, you know, to a title company, there's a lot of value. Donna actually personally makes up a lot of that paperwork, a lot of that documentation. That's the level of detail that she gets to. That's pretty unparalleled as far as I know. I could be wrong. I don't know every single person out there, but she really goes through in great detail and makes sure that, you know, I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and that, you know, all the language in there is done properly. And you'd learn a tremendous amount through that process. So
the big difference is that I've been seriously doing notes for 30 years.
Yep.
And I really do deals. That's where the majority of my income comes from. It doesn't come from books and tapes. The books and tapes are because we say tapes, that's old school. That's what,
I still have some tapes in my house.
Yeah, I do too. But the thing is that that's how I help people to learn. And there's nothing more rewarding. I feel like I have been so blessed, and I want to bless other people. And if I had not learned how to do this, where would I be today? I mean, I was babysitting 9 kids for $1 an hour per kid. And I don't know where I would be if I had not learned how to do notes. And so I see that it's changed my life and my family's life. And I just want to share that with other people. So that's why I do what I do.
One more, Donna, before we go. My good friend Jason Ortiz asked, what did Donna say about having, quote, compounded monthly? You want to say that again?
Okay. Real quick, when you state your interest rate, you should say, for example, 8% per annum, comma, compounded monthly. And the reason for that is in Ohio, according to an attorney, if it doesn't say compounded monthly, they can calculate what is owed to you, like on a foreclosure, when they calculate how much you're supposed to get. They can go back and they might owe you $200,000, but if it's calculated at simple interest, it might be $20,000. And he has had that happen on some of his foreclosure cases. And so he says, always make sure that you say compounded monthly. Now, I'll tell you where I think that that's not a problem is if you have been completely clear, kind of like what Jenny was saying, although she was leaving she was leaving out the interest rate. But if it's 360 monthly payments of $750 and 8% interest, if that works out to be compounded monthly, if you're showing them, or if you're giving them an amortization that compounds it monthly, then it's not that important. I don't know if I just confused you more or not, but just trust me, put compounded monthly, because you sure don't want any judge to change that to simple interest. You could lose a lot of money if he ever did that.
And that's the advantage, again, of just the voice of experience, and also someone that's, making sure that the details are done properly. So.
Exactly.
Okay, guys, I don't see any other, Jason.
No.
Thank you.
Get me here all night. Okay, one more. This is the last question.
No, that's it. That was it.
Is it? Okay, very good. Hey, thank you so much to everybody. Thank you, Matthew, for hanging in there with us and doing such a great job. Thank you, Bill.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. I hope to see some of you at Donna's Academy, and then I should start seeing you weekly here again. I've got my videos back up and going here. So it was really good to see you, everybody, again, and we'll be seeing you next time. Until next time, that is how you climb the hill. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a great night.
Good night.